Everyone's hyped about Final Fantasy coming out pretty soon, and don't get me wrong, I am too. But there is one card that I'm both very excited and very nervous about at the same time, and that is Vivi Ornitier. Ornitier, I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on pronunciation. You guys should know this by now if you've been watching my videos for a while. Now, this card, of course, a fan favorite character from Final Fantasy that has just fantastic artwork on all of its variants. But what's concerning about this card, of course, is its ability, and it's being compared to Nadu in some capacity. Some of you may remember Nadu from the nightmare that was summer of 2024. Let's talk about Vivi in this video and talk about not only some combos and cards that work well with it, but its potential impact on multiple formats. I am very much interested to see what this is going to look like. So before we actually dive in, if you guys do enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Click the bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted, and be sure to check us out over on TikTok as well. You can follow the link in the description below to check it out there. I do post a lot of shorts, nothing super exclusive, but still, if you're on that platform, the support would really help. Now, looking at Vivi, we're going to take a look at the card effect first. It is a mythic rare in the Final Fantasy set. It is part of the main set, meaning it will be legal in Standard as well as any other format. And it is one blue-red legendary creature wizard with pay 0. Add X mana in any combination of blue and or red, where X is Vivi's power. Activate only during your turn and only once each turn. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Vivi, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, that first effect having a once per turn restriction is obviously very important and very much needed considering the card's explosive ability. However, it is not a sorcery restriction of any kind, so you can use it at any point during your turn, which is an important distinction because the deck does obviously rely a lot on instants and being able to play a bunch of spells at a quick speed. So if your opponent is necessarily maybe going to try to pop this or something, you can still throw this on the stack and resolve all kinds of effects without losing out on the ability to use it. Now, it is, a 0/3, so you obviously have to start doing something in order to actually get any usage out of the effect. But that's kind of what we're going to talk about in today's video, is a couple of combos with it that already exist that go infinite, as well as some combos and cards that just really play to this card's strengths. Obviously, in Commander, it's going to be very popular. It is going to be a commander that you can very easily build around with Spellslinger, Storm type stuff and just get a shit ton of mana for free just by kind of buffing this up. And in Standard and maybe even Modern, I don't know, because Modern has a ton of Izzet stuff that Standard doesn't have access to. I expect it'll have a big impact there as well. So, talking about some of the cards that work really well with this right off the bat, we've got a card like Curiosity, which is a relatively, decent card that's nothing crazy, but it's just one blue enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Now, if you're wondering why this specifically works so well with Vivi, it's because Curiosity does not care how the damage is dealt. It does not have to be combat damage. So if you just play Curiosity from your hand for 1 blue mana, not only do you draw a card when it's activated, because Vivi's ability will deal 1 damage to each opponent, but then when you do swing, or if you do swing, you can continue to draw cards in future turns. So small interactions like that only cost 1 mana to play are just something that really helps you to get the ball rolling early, which can work really well with what Vivi is looking to do. You also have cards like Ophidian Eye, which isn't really as strong as Curiosity because it does have a much higher mana cost. However, it does have Flash, so you can utilize it a bit more, when you need it versus like having to play it during your turn. But it enchants a creature and then says whenever that creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. So again, you have the ability to just play this and immediately get a draw. But with this being active on Vivi, anytime you cast a non-creature spell and Vivi's ability deals damage to an opponent, you get to draw another card. So both this and Curiosity are really good kind of starter pieces to not only continue to generate advantage for you, but to, give you stuff building towards Storm and give you ways to really maximize Vivi's ability, in a quick and kind of effective manner. Now, another card I wanted to mention is Monstrous Rage. This is a really solid card that is very popular in Standard in the mono red aggro or Boros. But even here is a 1-drop that gives +2/+0 and then creates the monster roll token. So in theory, it's giving +3. For, just the 1 mana, you're giving Vivi +3, and then his own ability, is going to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So that's 4. You're immediately able to then get 4 mana based off of the first ability for very low investment. And so one of the biggest things that we see Spellslinger decks struggle with a lot is, early on being able to get a lot of mana to get things going quickly. And this basically laughs at that because it's just not a real concern. It's just not something that you're going to have a ton of concern with because you can get a lot of power added up, even if it's only temporary, but then it's going to allow you to ramp into stronger spells, and you're going to be accelerating ahead before you know it. Now, someone else pointed out a card from Dragonstorm, which is called Wild Ride, and it's just 1 red, sorcery. This target creature gets +3/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. Nothing crazy on the surface, but still a solid way to, give Vivi 4 power so you can get 4 mana. Where it's really interesting, though, is Harmonize. So Harmonize is a new mechanic from Tarkir where you can cast it from the grave for its Harmonize cost, and you may tap a creature to reduce the cost by X. So in this case, we're taking Vivi. We are playing this first. It's going to become a 4, I think it's going to be a 4/4 or a 4/5, depending on the counter that it would get. And then we're going to tap it, pay 1 red, and then we're going to cast this from grave to make it get another 4. And then you suddenly have access to 8 mana as early as turn, 3 or 4 for 1 card. And obviously, yes, it's, you have to tap Vivi to do it, but tapping it and then getting access to 8 mana is going to open up so many other things and combos that you can build off of, all for like a 1 card investment. All of this to say, some of the comparisons to Nadu aren't entirely unwarranted. There are a lot of cards that were starting to get a lot of hype when Nadu first came out, because you could, for basically 1 mana, trigger a bunch of effects to do all kinds of draws and things like that with Nadu and land ramp. And while Vivi's not as good as Nadu, I don't necessarily think it's meant to sound the alarm too much to that extent, it's definitely, on the surface, just looking at a few of these example combos, a very, very rewarding card that does not require you to invest a lot of mana or even, time into to really get it going. And that's kind of problematic, I think. I think as people continue to find other ways to, really abuse the effects that we're looking at here, and we'll talk about it in just a minute, how you can actually bypass some of those once per turn restrictions, it's just all across the board going to be a dominant card to have to deal with. Someone else had mentioned Harmonic Prodigy is another card that works really well with this, of course, because Vivi is a wizard. So for 2 mana, you have this that says if the ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, it triggers an additional time. So you cast a non-creature spell, and if you have Harmonic Prodigy out, Vivi's going to trigger twice. So not only going to deal damage to an opponent twice, but is going to get an additional counter, which means you have access to additional mana. And if you're playing cards like Curiosity and stuff, additional damage triggers, which means you just keep on ramping up all of this acceleration, which then allows you to kind of go further into whatever combos it is you're looking to set up. And again, this is just a small handful of cards out of a vast card pool that I'm sure some people haven't even begun to figure out combos yet, although it is kind of crazy how quickly people are able to come up with some things. All of that kind of is to say that you can see just from a few of these examples how strong this card is in a non-infinite situation, right? But let's talk about a couple of infinite situations then, since you probably are wondering what exactly I'm talking about on that front. I'll introduce you to a card called Quicksilver Elemental. This card is pretty old. It's actually from Mirrodin, so it's been, more than a decade. I don't remember exactly when Mirrodin came out, and time is weird to me, but it had to be somewhere in the mid to early 2000s. Either way, this was like a bulk card that just recently shot up to $15 because it is a 3 blue elemental creature with 1 blue mana. Quicksilver Elemental gains all activated abilities of target creature until end of turn. You may spend blue mana as though it were mana of any color to pay the activation costs of Quicksilver Elemental's abilities. So how does this work? Well, you have Quicksilver Elemental out with Vivi, and then you use 1 blue mana to give Quicksilver Elemental Vivi's activated ability. So obviously Vivi is only a once per turn, but you use the ability of Vivi, and then you use Quicksilver Elemental, and then you use the ability again, and you add the mana, and you can kind of keep circling it, because each time you use the blue ability of Quicksilver Elemental, it counts as a new instance, so it bypasses the once per turn restriction that Vivi would otherwise have. Meaning, as long as you have mana to pay, which you will because you're going to keep adding blue mana, you can just generate infinite mana off of this 2-card combo and then have a bunch of resources available to cast whatever spells you want to cast. And, obviously, yes, this card does cost 5 to bring out and isn't the easiest thing to protect, but as long as you get it out at the same time as you have Vivi out, you're basically able to just set yourself up for immediate success. And that is more than likely going to win you the game if you get that combo off, because infinite mana in a deck that can storm and do all sorts of other things, and if you have the right setup, continue to draw cards on top of it, you're going to become a huge target, but you're also going to be able to really kind of dominate your opponents, and I think this is something that we're going to see a lot of people trying to make work. The other combo that I read that's kind of infinite with this that I think is interesting, and maybe not as good because it does require an additional card, but still something to consider, is Deadeye Navigator, which is 4 and 2 blue creature spirit with Soul Bond. So when it enters, you pair it with another unpaired creature. You basically just target it. And it says, as long as Deadeye Navigator is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has 1 and a blue. Exile this creature, then return it to the battlefield under your control. So you play it and you pair it with Vivi, and then you, for 2 mana, can blink Vivi and bring it back to the field, which of course resets its ability to, generate that mana. Now, there is a third piece of this combo, though, which is Hero's Blade. It is a 2-drop artifact equipment that says equipped creature gets +3/+2. Whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach Hero's Blade to it. So if you kind of can't put the combo line together there, what we're doing here is we're using Deadeye Navigator to give Vivi that ability to blink itself, and then when it blinks back in, it automatically attaches to Hero's Blade, which then gives it additional power, which means you then add 3 mana, and then you pay 2 to blink it, and you continue to do that infinitely until you have enough mana to be able to play whatever you want. Obviously, this one is a little more challenging to get to, simply because Deadeye Navigator costs 6, and then you also have to have Hero's Blade out, but it's not like it's impossibly hard to do, especially if you draw well enough to just kind of survive for a few turns while you look to get things set up. And obviously, some of these combos are not playable in Standard, which is good, but that's not to say that there aren't combos in Standard that are going to work very, very similarly to what you're doing here, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe Quicksilver Elemental is legal in Modern. So that play, that infinite loop play should probably work. And of course, as I'm looking at this, it is Modern legal. So it is a Modern legal card. That means that infinite is very much doable there. And I'm sure when it's infinite and can put all kinds of things together, you're going to have a lot of people trying to play with that and make it work. So, in recap, Vivi is a very popular card. I do like the design, but I'm also very uncomfortable about the potential of having to deal with it and just how strong it really is, because the amount of stuff people have come up with in like a week or two of it being out doesn't even scratch the surface of what we might discover are some other combos that can be done. And there are already some people thinking this card could get like emergency ban depending on its impact in the format. I wouldn't necessarily go that far yet, but I do think it's something to keep an eye out, and it's absolutely going to be broken in the right format. So let me know what you guys think of Vivi. I know it's been a huge topic of conversation. I wanted to make a quick video about it just to sort of put it out there and talk about some of the cards. I'll catch you guys in the next video. If you did enjoy, feel free to leave a comment and be sure to like and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.